Hello and welcome to a new episode of Backlinking, the PKM podcast. In today's podcast episode, I am going to talk about figuring out what you need from different productivity applications or productivity applications in general, because that is probably the biggest mistake or my personal biggest mistake when I first got into productivity applications, PKM, and productivity in general, was that instead of figuring out what I needed, which is different from person to person, I ended up watching a lot of second brain PKM content, and it just did what all of the other influencers were doing. And I'm not saying that they are doing anything bad. I'm just saying that my life was different, so I probably needed something else. And I am really happy that I watched all of those influencers' videos on Second Brain and PKM because I wouldn't be here otherwise. But I just needed something else than they did. Like most of them ran their own businesses. Some of them had like a job and then a business. My life was completely different. I was a student just trying to get through university. So it is different from person to person what you actually need from your productivity applications. And I wish that I have started thinking about that instead of just jumping into all of the other applications. So I started off with, or all of the applications other people were using, because I started off with the most popular one, which I think a lot of people do. A lot of people start with Notion, and Notion is great for a project management, and I know that a lot of students use Notion as well. I hated it for taking notes. I think I don't like it as a note-taking app. Notion has changed a bit since I used it, but I started off with Notion, and I ended up just having so much information that was hard to find. Then I jumped into Mem because maybe AI would save all of my problems, but Mem didn't have a lot of the features that I needed when it came to task management, and I didn't want to get into a task management application because I thought that I needed an all-in-one application that was much better. At least that was what I heard from um, a lot of the YouTube videos that I watched, and for a lot of those people, it was actually the case. Like the best thing for them was an all-in-one productivity application. Then I got a job, which meant that my life changed a little bit, and I needed other things. Like I needed a more visual approach. I had to use a lot of like work related applications, basically the whole Microsoft ecosystem. So uh, my productivity method changed a little bit. I didn't have a clear when I first started, like a clear weekly reset or weekly review, monthly review, things like that. um so I didn't have a clear system. I only knew that I wanted a second brain, and I knew that para existed. It wasn't until I got into bullet journaling that I figured out a lot of my needs, and or at least started to figure out a lot of my needs. It wasn't until like 3 months ago I actually felt that I sat down and tried to figure out everything and build like my system. And that system has evolved. It started like a year ago now. So last summer, it started like I started building some small things. I started having like a weekly reset inside of Todoist with a lot of subtasks. And it has like grown since then. Back a year ago, I didn't have a lot of meetings. I didn't travel. I There was a lot of things like I did not do, which meant that I just needed something simple. Now I have a lot of meetings. I have a lot more tasks at work. This YouTube social media stuff also actually has a lot of meetings now. I have to spend a little bit more time reading up on new productivity applications, testing them out, and I need to schedule a lot more. And I started doing time blocking, which I haven't done before. Um, so I added a lot of that into my system, which meant that now I needed a different like Sunday reset. I do my resets on Sunday, except next week that will be a Monday because I'm going to a concert, which I'm so excited about. But that is not why you're here. You're not here to listen to me talk about the concerts I'm going to. Anyways, I do my weekly resets every Sunday, and I needed to change things up. So I needed to spend more time on my tasks. When am I going to do my different tasks? Am I traveling this week? How many meetings do I have? Do I have to change things up because I have a lot of meetings? So I needed to start thinking about things like that. And your system will change because your life will change. But figuring out the necessities is really important. And I would say figure out your system first, then your applications. So as I said, when I started using or reading the bullet journal method and doing Bujo, I figured out that I needed a couple of steps or a couple of highlights, a couple of things to attach my whole system to, which in Bujo is like it is a sort of a weekly reset, a monthly reset. I think they do. Some people do quarterly, some people do half year, people do yearly as well. I do monthly, and I also do weekly, and I do yearly. I don't do the quarterly and half year ones. I might do that sometime in the future, but it was first then I understood that like I need a system, but then I also need like specific times where I can clean up my system because it will get saturated. You will suddenly have a lot of tasks, and you might have a week or two where you're not able to do a weekly review. You're not able to maintain your system, clean everything out. And that's when you need like these monthly ones to go over everything to sort of do a total reset. And I also figured out that when things get really hectic and my especially my task management system starts falling apart, I just move everything to archive. I archive everything, and the most important tasks will probably show up again. I also had to figure out like what's the bottlenecks in my productivity system, and this is especially for people who are really into productivity. Like for most people, it is just write down your tasks, take notes when you need to take notes. But for some people, like myself, we have big systems around our productivity, and we are really interested in productivity. So um, this isn't like for everyone. And as I said, I started to figure out my system like 2, 3 months ago. And that brings me to the main point of this podcast episode, and that is figure out like the features you need after you've figured out your system, how you work, how you think, your bottlenecks when it comes to your productivity, when it comes to the applications or the system you're using, actually. So the bottlenecks around the system you're currently using. And when you've figured out all of these things, you don't even have to figure it out, but at least when you've thought about them, it might be time to figure out what features do you actually need and what features are like just what I call shiny tools. A lot of features are just shiny bells and whistles, and I figured that out quite quickly. That AI, for example, inside of especially note-taking applications, in my case, is just a shiny it's a shiny bell. It's a shiny bell I never use. I can't figure out how to implement it in my system. I tried Tana, for example, and I think a lot of the AI inside of Tana is really good. It just did not fit my system, and that was mainly because I like to do long form writing, and then I like to discuss my long form writing with with AI, and there is a way of doing like long form writing inside of Tana. You can do like multiple bullet points as paragraphs. That works, and it works quite well, but it is sort of a hack, and it isn't supposed to like long paragraphs as of right now is not the way you're going to use Tana. It is an outliner, and when writing long paragraphs is such an important part of my system, it becomes an issue to use something like Tana. The second thing is that I just don't use the AI as much. I might do it in the future, and I'm trying to like get used to using more AI, but I mostly want AI to do things in the background for me. So my dream would be like help me prioritize tasks, for example, or help me figure out which email should I respond to first, things like that. Email triaging would be great from an AI. I don't use it as much for a lot of the use cases I've seen in a lot of note-taking applications. I have quite a basic use case of AI. I use it a lot for like getting feedback on designs, but that isn't something I will do inside of a note-taking application. That is something I will do inside of like ChatGPT, inside of Claude, things like that. I will put actually inside of the applications themselves and not using a note-taking app for it. A lot of note-taking apps don't even have the feature where you can add an image and discuss the image. So that is something I'm using AI for. I use AI for transcriptions, but I have an application which I paid the lifetime access plan for, so I'm not paying a monthly subscription on it, so I will definitely choose to use that application. Uh, and I also use AI for grammar and spell checks, but again, that is something I do when it comes to writing emails, which I don't do inside of my note-taking application. It is something I do when I write messages, when I write social media posts, and I want I don't want to be in a situation where I'm paying for AI inside of a note-taking application, but my main use cases for AI can't be done inside of that note-taking application. That's why I ended up with just using Raycast AI, which I am totally in love with. It's been an amazing experience, and it works with my use cases, which again comes back to the point of figure out your use cases. What features do you actually need? And in my case, I need AI, but I need AI in a really specific way, which Raycast provides, which means that I have to pay for a utility application like Raycast. And Raycast also has a focus mode, which I use a lot. Again, something that I really like, and it is an important part of my system. I like focus modes, so that is something I'm going to pay for. Um, I also figured out that I work a lot inside of my email. Like mainly my tasks come from my emails, which means that if I can just quickly put something from my email onto my calendar or onto my task list, that will make my life so much easier. That is why I ended up with the task management tool I'm using currently. It also does some of the AI stuff I really want, triaging my email, helping me figure out what to work on, things like that. At least on a basic level, but just the email triaging, it does a lot of the things I wanted to do. And I'm also currently testing out like using the chat features inside of these applications to make the application do something for me. For example, schedule an event next week, 7 o'clock, just as an example. Trying that out as well. Not currently liking it, but it is something I'm playing around with. And I needed to figure out like what are these features that I need? What features are just bells and whistles? AI is just um a shiny bell for me in most cases. Another one is backlinking. Like, I like the idea of backlinking, but it doesn't give me anything. I just like the idea of it. It sounds fun to backlink things and to see a beautiful graph. I've never used it. And I know that for a lot of people, like the graph, the backlinking is the most important thing. And that brings me to my point again of like different people need different things. I like the idea of backlinking. I don't actually use backlinking for anything. So that is something I just removed from my system, like the need to backlink things. If an application has backlinking, that's great. I won't stop using an application because it has that ability, but it is not something I look for. Another one is these text-based visual applications. Think of Heptabase, which is an amazing application. I've talked about that several times. I think it has it is one of the best applications right now, and it has one of the best roadmaps out of all of the note-taking applications. But my issue with the application is simply that I am not as visual when it comes to text as I think. I like the idea of seeing things visually, but again, it sometimes feels really chaotic to me. But on the other hand, Milanote, for example, works much better because it performs better with images and files. But that is because of the work I do. So, as you might hear, these things start to get a little complex and weird, but it is also about how the application feels. But these text-based visual applications haven't worked out for me. I like the idea of them. I haven't been able to make them work. Um, Milanote has worked a little better, probably because it has less features. It doesn't have the backlinking because I have an issue with things getting too complex. Again, that might just be me. But that brings me back to my point, and I just want to end it off with this. Try to figure out what features you need. These are my personal experiences. As you can hear, when it comes to like the visual aspect of things, I haven't quite figured things out yet, but I am trying to. Um, so that wraps it up for today's podcast. The main point is try to figure out what features you need by figuring out your system first and building on top of that. And as usual, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. I will try to get to them as soon as I can. And thank you so much for watching or listening to today's podcast episode.